Alright, let's dance. Let's make some fusion happen, shall we? Inside here, I got a few things up here. Oxford Calculus, Introduction to Square Root Numbers and Operations, 8th grade math, and a system on what is Common Core. But we'll get into some other material really quickly, or we're about to get into some other material real quickly, but I wanted to explain this material up here really quickly, because I have some other context to it. Now, don't worry, we're not going to go through these two, but you know, this is 8th grade math, and I wanted this
and this is used to the square root, and we'll see other types of...
We're trying to, on a piece of paper, or a whiteboard, or whatever, we're going to try to find the square root, or whatever, but we're not going to be using any of this here today. Just forget about that. I want you to do this for a review, because there's a very sensitive topic that I want to talk about, and it's very important for kids to kind of understand this in Common Core, well, and critical theory as well too. So, you know, let's just get this out here for us adults inside of this standard and situation. What is critical theory? To refer to a whole range of theories which take a critical view of society and the human science, or which seeks to explain the emergence of their objects and of knowledge. Of their emergence of their objects of knowledge. It also refers to the major stand in the works of the Frankfurt School or Frankenstein School, a piece in this thing together inside of what's going on in terms of calculus. Well, you'd have to use calculus. I need to have averages. I need to have common values on students. I need to have what's the result of the class. If in case studies a Jacobian matrix, let's say, I have a case study of 3 groups, and I do that 3 times, and I test the result on a bunch of students. You know, that forms an extra zeta function at x and y and some other heavy-duty conceptual models, but I'm moving fast here, so hang with me at CTX or what have you. That's my Hulk monitor about ready to go off. Okay, so the Democratic budget here, ACO is the leader of the Democratic Party. Oh, jeepers. We're in trouble now, boys. I'm starting some stuff. Well, this is important to some other things that we got going on inside here. Just in general thinking about...
George Washington, not a member of a political party. In the long history of the American Republic, there have been 45 presidents of the United States.
Science is very important.
First president.
Let me just go ahead and tell you something here. It doesn't matter what country you're from. This is 2021. This is the kind of thing that shatters reality to a lot of people's conceptual thinking. What do you think you do in Russia and China and America, Yemen, Haiti, and other places? I bet you it has a lot to do with calculus. I bet you it has a lot to do with prime values on the side of a system. Is that a prime number? Yes. Put a little mark next to that. Is this one a prime number? No. What do all of them share in common by the value of the square root inside here that applies one data compressed system to the model of a program that we can all adjust into, that has the best trajectory, has the best projectile trajectory towards this word being not really an effect. This is black hole science, and time turns into space, and space turns into matter at a YF over X kind of function in terms of calculus to whether they're the best determinations on what this system is. So this is the brief history of how the Democratic Party started relative to Washington here.
Not represent a political
what was
party.
going on at the time?
Put another way, every president...
Why shouldn't we have these things?
But Washington believed, as did many of...
Especially nowadays. You know, when I do calculus over anywhere, in any state or any country or any model, if I was going to do that, why would calculus change? Does China and Russia teach a different variable on what calculus is, with different symbols and different shapes? I mean, in line to the congruency of metric and imperial language variables, symbols, but mannerisms and expressionisms, calligraphy or hieroglyphics. I don't know. Anyways, inside of there, that they still applied the same message, that the end result is at a time and a space, at a specific function and matter. So as we begin to do this, we'll get into the Republican Party as well.
So with the Republican National Convention,
there's a question,
just a couple of weeks
and what
you thought it would
from that question, how far does the apple roll from the tree? How far does it fall and then go? Well, it would determine a lot about the topology, correct? That time dilation or time topology, distortion, lensing effects of... I'm trying to decipher and correlate those models back down to zero, where there really wouldn't be a value to what the name is, mathematically speaking, but you got to be careful with this kind of notation, because at this point in time, you still have to have, I believe in math. You believe in math, and you believe in math, and you can't call me any, you can't say that you don't. So when we're dealing with the trajectories on those things, having prime indicators of the internet today and social media and those other values, that you don't necessarily need those values. When somebody compels your system as a source into these things, that you could hold them responsible for journalistic integrity, slander, what is it, libel? Yeah, I forget exactly. It starts with libel, I think is what it is. That you really can't define those things. But if I were to put the word like slander or libel into the concerns of what this is, it starts to deal with the harassment. What exactly is harassment? What exactly is loss of energy than the flow dynamics, other than the natural form of gravity away from the situation? And I mean that specifically, not 9.8 meters per second or Bernoulliing the algorithm around on the pain train to how large the train is, but I mean Bernoulli to change the composition of Earth or Mars to 9.8 meters per second so they would be equal, or I could change the size or scale from the distance of the sun to the planet and other values of what the astrology, cosmetology, the topology may correlate in terms of what these references correlate to. You know, so what, you know, that's a heavy-duty subject matter that you would hopefully see in sociology, in psychology, in Oxford-level calculus or chemistry or some other value inside of here. But is there any way we can change out the values of these things where I could say, mathematically speaking, in a Schrödinger multi-world type of circumstances, using Heisenberg's motion and position, that I would, or uncertainty, to be able to then say, well, could I make this a kindergarten class? I don't know if I necessarily should kindergarten. But after 18, you know, let's say most 12th graders are going to be 18 years old, 17, 18 years old when they graduate, right? So wouldn't you want to argue that in 8th grade, or begin to start to touch on subject matters of, well, the square root inside here would be obviously America. I don't necessarily need to correlate my value to another country. The American standard and how it works here to, I've never needed to do business outside of China or Japan or Thailand for any other reason than being supplied inside here. And we certainly might have the materials. We certainly might have the system. And it is a school. You know, as kids and things like that, how would we begin to edge into this situation to begin to notate the idea of what you should be thinking about, you know, in terms of what this is? Yes, calculus is important. Yes, those other things. But we certainly have a history class, don't we? Why wouldn't the standard model of at what point inside of let's call it 10th grade history? You know, just real quickly here. Come on. And with this, you know, why there's so many differences between terms. I should come from New York and be able to hit Pennsylvania with the same class syllabus because I'm asking a teacher to correlate a position, not free think the design on what this is, for what the standards represent. So we got 10th grade over here, and I know I'm going to hit Lincoln in here in a second.
Idea to sit down and examine the history.
Slavery.
There he is, start of the Democrat or the Republican Party over here. Now he was actually considered a Aborigine, not actually a Republican Party to totally hit the zero button on slavery across the time. Obviously, these things are going to have some time dilation, and topology are going to matter specifically for what happens. But nowadays, you know, things have changed over quite a bit. You know, I'm not saying that this should be the syllabus, or am I specifying what grade that this should be specific to, let alone a grade at all, let alone a college degree or system. But how can I quantify that degree to be worth something if they're not congruent by the standard of where we position and teach those things? And this isn't just isolated to just America alone. there would be other values inside of there of other countries that commonly have this problem, and therefore how to readjust and renormalize this situation and understanding. This is the biology.
I absolutely love teaching. I just wish I had more time to prepare fun lessons.
Those lessons are like chemistry lab experiments, not
Today we're going to pick up where we left off last
some
week.
kind of
We're
standard
right in the
inside
midst
here.
of the 1850s,
This should
and we're
be
talking
generally what your
extensively
bill should be
about
writing.
the
Hey,
conflict
you know, I know I got it up
leading
here for
us
ACO
into
being the
Civil
Democratic
War.
Party. Hey, lead
Now,
into
before
it.
we jump back
This would be
into where
great
we
stuff
left off last
to
week,
begin
let's
to
talk
start
a
to
little bit
idealize it,
about
why
where
you
we
should get the
left
momentum,
off with political
why you
parties and
should
talk
get
about
that
these
mass,
political
why you
parties for
should
just
get
a
those
moment
votes,
to
why you
understand
should get
how
somebody to
divided
say, hey,
the United States was
inside here to
before
cleric
the
on
abolition of
D&D, I will
slavery.
give
And
you
if we look
all
at
of
our
my
chart
magic
here, we can
tools,
see
and you
extensively
lead
that
the party,
when we
buddy.
look
You
down,
lead this
especially
expedition, this republic, if you will, this area where the time topology specifies that's what this correlates to, and roll for stamina. I want you to roll the bones and not just individually say, oh, well, I got a 4 on it, go. No, you got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way out to 20 on the D20, right? I need every matrix on side of there, correlate what information comes against that, and then make the determination of those standard models to what becomes the best standards. And that's a way to greatly reduce the amount of information that you're dealing with something like the conservation of information or the conservation of energy. So that was my note. I wanted to make sure I specified it. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you're from. Just if you can't necessarily do that type of material, then I know I personally wouldn't vote for you. I wouldn't sponsor you. And I would do what I could to undermine you the best I could to represent somebody that actually does. Catch you on the next one.